Okay, so today I'm here with Nanice Ellis. So this is the second in my self-love interview series for the Global Yogi. And I'm really happy to be here with Nanice because I've been following her work for a few years now, since I found this amazing pledge, which is it's called a pledge to, it's like a self-honoring pledge. And I've had this up on my wall for about probably three or 4 years in all the different houses I've lived around the world. And it's amazing in Bali, in Europe, here in Australia, because I move around quite a bit. So Nanice is an American based in Utah now, author and speaker and healer who basically works around self-empowerment, self-love, self-realization, and has been on this path a really long time. And she's recently written a book called Is There a White Elephant in Your Way? Which I've read, and it's amazing. So yeah, I'm really, really happy to have her here today to find out a little bit more about her own journey in self-love and how she's learned everything that she has. So welcome, Nanice.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
So exciting to have you.
Thank you.
So, your book, Is There a White Elephant in Your Way? Really, the core kind of principle is that we're either living from ego or from our higher selves.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I found that that's just, it's such a clear way of expressing the problem of kind of self-realization, I guess, for most people. It's like, for me, it was just really, really clear. And I guess I had that feeling like, well, actually, most people are pretty much living from ego, currently in the world. Is that what you would think?
Yeah, I think right now we're living in a world that is predominantly ego-based. However, more people are remembering themselves. And I think even people who live in their egos mostly, they have moments where their true self shines through.
Yeah.
Are those amazing moments that are peak moments. And what we don't realize until we do realize is that that's really the way we're meant to live.
Yeah.
But I want to defend the ego because the ego does get a bad rep. This is not about
it's bad.
The ego is the enemy. Yeah, it's not that at all. The ego is a program. Like it's a subconscious program. That's all it is. And it's a survival program.
Yeah.
And its purpose is to keep us alive. So not just, fear about going too close to that cliff, but also, fear of dying from abandonment or rejection. It's a very primal fear that goes back to our caveman days, because if we weren't considered worthy by our tribesmen, we could be abandoned, rejected, and die out in the wilderness. And so that program is running.
So it's useful.
So part of what the ego does is it protects us from dangerous situations where we could be abandoned and die, and it has these other subconscious programs, and one of those programs I call the worthiness program.
Yeah.
So it's there to protect our worth, to make sure we're worthy, so that our tribe doesn't abandon us. The thing is, we don't need that program anymore. It's a basic program, so it still runs.
Yeah.
And the journey to living as our true self is really becoming aware of how that program operates, and then having the consciousness to turn it off.
Yeah.
Once you recognize it, it's really clear, clear.
Yeah, yeah. But that's quite a long process, the recognition, because it's kind of, you need to be recognizing moment by moment by moment by moment, and
Yes.
Yeah. So what role do you think self-love plays in slowly living more and more in alignment with your higher self, rather than based on your ego's program of self-protection?
Yeah. So about I've always been aware of how important self-love is. About a year and a half ago, my son, one of my sons, I have three sons, we were hiking and sitting by a lake and having this amazing conversation, one of many, and we started talking about really creating, attracting the things we want in our lives. And I had been casually working on this manifestation book, right? But hadn't really put it together. And it became so apparent in this conversation that everything was pointing to, like, self-love is the key. Self-love is the key. And I had a little like journal with me, and I ended up writing in the journal that key number one, the master key to everything, love thyself. And I wrote it like on 5 different pages. It was so important. I just kept writing, love thyself. And that really is the master key to everything.
Yeah.
To everything. And loving thyself, like when you really love yourself, it's not a selfish love. What ultimately happens is thyself becomes everyone and everything. So as you love yourself, this love fills you and overflows. Yeah. And everywhere. So now it's easy to love others. It's effortless.
So it's almost like the oneness kind of thing comes in, that you feel just deeply connected because you see yourself as the world. So it's like you can see everyone else in the same way.
Yeah, it happens very organically. I think a lot of times we approach spirituality in a very intellectual, cognitive way. Like we're all one, and so we look around thinking, okay, we're all one, so we should, be kind, and that's true. Except that just in the head, like just intellectually, it doesn't really make the shift. Yeah. And when you really, pull your energy in, you pull your power in, and you choose to love yourself. You go on this journey. Yeah. Yeah. Seeing all the places that you don't love yourself, and at first it looks like maybe you're selfish, like the world might call you selfish, but really what's happening is you're reclaiming your energy, your power, your worth, and as you fill up with this love for the period of time that it looks selfish to others, you're really being whole. And then what happens is you are so whole that you're overflowing with love. Yeah. So what was, so maybe in the past you were selfless because you thought that was the right way to be, the spiritual way to be, or because your mother taught you to be that way, or, whatever it is. Yeah. And this period of pulling the energy back, and it appears that you're selfish, but then you come out the other side and you find that you're no longer needing to fill up anything. You're full already. Yeah. And now you have this energy to give, and you're doing the same things you did prior, or doing more, but it's not costing you anything because you are overflowing with energy. Full. Yeah. Because you're full. Yeah. Yeah. Gotta put that somewhere. Yeah. Yeah.
Fill yourself up first and then let it flow.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And so then you end up being selfless from a whole different perspective. It's not forced selfless.
It's easy.
And effortless. Yes.
Yeah, because you're not compromising anything. Yeah. Right. I was just reading that part of your book, the moving from selfful to selfless. But it's kind of, I guess it's probably sort of the last step in the self-love journey. Yeah.
Yeah. It just, you can't force it.
Yeah.
You can't force it. Yeah.
So, I was just interested to find out a little bit about your journey to loving yourself. Has that been a long journey? I mean, I guess it's always continuing. Yeah. Or is it done? Are you done? Are you perfectly self-loving?
Yeah, I do. The journey always continues if you have a body. It's that's here. We're here to be on a journey. Yeah. But to tell you just a little bit about like what my path to this point. So, I grew up in Queens, New York, only child of 2 parents who had lived through the Depression. So there were, a lot of conscious and unconscious issues that were behind the scenes. Okay. And really, I remember when I was about 11 years old, I got up the courage to go to my mother and I said, Mom, how come you never told me that you loved me? And all my childhood.
11, wow, that's pretty early.
11, yeah. And she responded, she said, well, I don't even know what love is. How can, I say it if I don't know what it is?
Wow.
That was a little shocking. It was honest,
Yeah.
hurtful, for a little kid, but
Yeah.
it was honest.
Yeah.
Yeah. And hindsight, of course, my mother totally loved me. There's no doubt. But
Yeah.
really, she didn't know what love was because she was abandoned as a child and she went through a lot of hardships. And, my dad had, similar stuff. And
Yeah.
so I didn't grow up like knowing what love was.
Yeah.
And blessing that is, because, it's like, if you don't know, if you don't experience darkness, you don't know what light is. Is that if you ever experience cold, you don't know what hot is. Like, so the contrast us to really understand dynamics. So, but when I was so that created a whole bunch of worthiness stuff, and now I can recognize it so clearly. Of course, you can't. And I was that kid that was picked on and beat up and all that when I was little, and then got past that. And then when I was 16, I was in a very, very abusive relationship and barely escaped with my life. It was quite amazing, actually. Yeah. And I realized now, looking back, that was just really a reflection, of course, of how I felt about myself and the universe through this very now I want to say loving and kind young man. At the time, I didn't think so, but now I see that it was perfect and that he played the role I asked him to. And
he needed to show you something.
Yeah, absolutely. And so when I got out of that, like, I really had to claim a huge element of power and worth, but it's still, I didn't know what it was. And about a year after that, I discovered I was pregnant at 17 years old.
Yeah.
And decided to have this child by myself as a parent. And I asked myself, like,
that's
what is the
brave.
one thing that I want to give? Yeah. Yeah. It was a fantastic choice, though. It changed my life in all the most amazing ways. Yeah. I asked myself, like, what do I want to give to my child? And, of course it was, unconditional love, and it was self-esteem, but I didn't know what that was. I really didn't have a clue. And so it set me on this journey to figure it out. And those two are very, very interconnected.
Yeah.
Self-worth, self-esteem, self-love. They're, part of the same puzzle.
Yeah.
And so to my child, I figured I had to figure out what it was first. And that set me on this path, which really began when I was about 11 or 12. So at 11 or 12 years old, I had a whole bunch of questions because I had experiences that no one else seemed to have. And so I had already been studying metaphysics and psychology and parapsychology and, everything I could imagine. And so at that point, at, 17 years old, the journey just started turning a little bit different. Instead of trying to figure out what was out on the outside world, it was like, okay, let's see what's on the inside world. It began a beautiful path.
Yeah. Wow. And do you have like a series of ongoing self-love practices since then? Or?
No, just life.
Yeah. Okay.
And what I mean by that is that, it's like when you love and honor yourself, your life reflects it. So you do what you love to do.
Yeah.
And, in work and in play. And at some point you realize that there's no difference because you love your work, and it's play. And, it's amazing. And so, I live in the most beautiful place, best skiing in the universe, like just 15 minutes from my house. So, it's self-love. I find myself on the slopes, and self-love to sit down and write an article or a book, or it's self-love to work with amazing people around the world, which I do. That's all, my kids are around. That's all love. That's what it looks like.
Yeah. So you don't need any practice anymore because you're just living it. So why, I mean, I guess we've kind of touched on it really, but why do you think there's so many people who don't love themselves? Is it mostly coming from childhood, lack of worth and, that they haven't been taught, I guess, either through their upbringing or school or to love themselves, or even that's even necessary, something you have to do?
Yeah, we've never been taught to love ourselves.
Yeah.
You could go and randomly pick, 1,000 people and ask them, were you ever taught to love yourself? And you'd be lucky to find one who said yes. Yeah, we've taught, and for most of us, by the time we start first grade, that's where the worthiness program starts, that you're only worthy of love if you pass tests, if you're a good boy or girl, if you do what you're told. It's like there's all these standards, and worth, it's always about being worthy of love and being worthy of life. So when we talk about worth, that's really what we're talking about. And so if a child doesn't feel worthy, they don't love themselves. And the other thing that happens, and it's so interesting, that when other people, and this is in childhood, but also in adulthood, when somebody else rejects us or seems to reject us, we do the same thing to ourselves. So it's like the lover leaves, and that's, real heartache is that, the lover has left, and then we reject ourselves. And that's really the wound and the pain.
Yeah. So we're like mirroring the behavior of other people towards us.
Yes. It's like, I'm not lovable unless other people say that I'm lovable.
Yeah.
And this is the dynamic that we just keep passing on. But I think that it's partly, or more than partly, a program that operates. And the reason that I say that, because, so I have a grandson who's 7, but he just made me this beautiful bracelet for Valentine's Day. So
nice.
Yeah. And so he's brought up in a really conscious environment, and his parents are really conscious, and I'm conscious. The whole family is very, very conscious. And so he doesn't have the same, and he goes to a very non-traditional school. So he's not in what we would call like the system, or giving unconscious programs. And I can see that even without any of that, there's a sensitivity that he's very, very conscious of if there's any indication that he's unworthy, even though that doesn't even exist at home, school. So it tells me that there has to be something that's passed on,
like generational.
Yes. Yeah.
Like a deep kind of maybe unworthiness program that's just there.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Yeah. And so being aware of this, when we see it, we just talk about it and we disentangle it.
Yeah.
So it doesn't create a wound or a belief, and then he's free. And it's so interesting, because before that I thought, like it's just something that happens when we're children, but I really do believe now that it's passed on. It's passed on.
Yeah.
But we're ready to end that, right?
Like the almost kind of genetically passed on almost.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like a really, really deep program. I mean, I was speaking to someone else the other day about self-love, and she was saying also that it's kind of also the journey of life is to learn to love yourself, kind of thing. Like it's part of what we're here for. So maybe that's like, but I think ideally it would be obviously better if we didn't have any kind of deep unworthiness program running.
Yeah, totally. And I think that's what we're moving to, where we're moving beyond that.
Yeah.
I have a theory about why that is.
Okay.
And the theory is, so, as our higher selves, as our true selves, we are indestructible. We know who we are. The self-love, that's not even an issue. It's
if we're living from higher self.
Yeah, and even beyond the physical body. And so, it's like we're playing like a rather virtual game here on Earth.
Yeah.
And what makes the game so real is amnesia of our true selves. And so, for a very long time, we have come to this planet, this human history, shall we say, with amnesia, so we can play this very real game.
So that connects with what she said. Yeah, it's kind of like we've kind of forgotten, like right from the beginning, like who we are, and so we have to learn to love ourselves and who we are. Like that's kind of that's the game.
Yes. Yeah. That's how you transcend the game.
Yeah.
It's
like
how
you get out of the game. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But don't be fooled by any means. We're here for a reason. It's by
Yeah.
choice. This is a fun game.
We want to
It's
play
a
the
fun
game.
game.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we forget that when we come here. It's like, oh, what have I done? And, I remember my grandson again, when he was first born, I would look into his eyes and he would have this look on his face, like this very old soul, like, oh, what have I done?
Oh
I'm in
shit,
this
I'm here again.
oh shit, what did I do? Like that. Yeah. Yeah. And it was a little freaky. I've never seen anything like it before. Yeah. Right. And then at some point, I think it was maybe like he was maybe like 3 months old, 2 to 3 months old. And all of a sudden I could see when he forgot. Like, so he went from like this, oh shit, why am I here?
Why am I here again?
Yeah, yeah, right. Like, completely forgetting that and having amnesia. And I knew first, finally, this is why we have amnesia, so we can really be in this journey.
Yeah.
And I had an appreciation for amnesia like I never did before. Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. It's amazing you can see something like that in a kid, in a baby so young. Yeah. So you talk about self-love as the same as life force energy. So again, I was reading this section of the book this morning. So like if you find that you're lacking in life force energy, just energy, enthusiasm for life, that's probably an indication that you're not really loving yourself.
Right. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So life force energy, we never really think about it. We take it for granted. So of course we know that we need food and water, and these are necessities, of course, for life, but we also need life force energy even more than food and water.
Yeah, much
you
more.
Can live for weeks without food, days without water, but you can't live at all without life force energy.
Yeah.
And when we disconnect from our true selves, and we disconnect when we withhold love, when we doubt our worth, right? So we cut that off. And we, of course, to be alive, we always have a certain amount, but it's really inhibited. And at that point, the ego turns on to generate energy for us. And it does that all these different programs, including the worthiness program. So ego, I believe, is energy generating operator.
Yeah, I love that.
Energy generating operator. Yeah, that's what it does. It's generate energy.
So generating false energy because we don't actually need it if we're connected to life force. Yeah.
Right.
So looking for validation from external sources, from people or achievements or jobs or
that gives temporary energy, but we have it's not sustainable, and we have to keep getting more validation and more acceptance and more whatever that is, right? And
exhausting.
And the cost. Yeah. And so even though we're getting some energy, artificial energy, it's costing more energy on the backside, and eventually there's a breakdown where it just doesn't work anymore.
Yeah, like a nervous breakdown.
Yes. Midlife crisis, some kind of chaos, something in life where it just doesn't work anymore.
Yeah. So what about pleasure? What do you think is the relation between self-love and pleasure? Because I think a lot of people, they just don't really have enough pleasure in their lives, or they're denying themselves pleasure for some reason.
Well, it's like I think we deny ourselves pleasure because we have beliefs that we have to prove our worth first. So we've got guilt and obligation. So we have to meet all these conditions, whatever they are, before we can enjoy pleasure.
So what about emotions like guilt and shame? Do you think there's is there a usefulness to those emotions?
Well, I think there's usefulness to every emotion. I think they all provide guidance, and I believe that they all are tools in life. It's when it's chronic that the problem that it creates problems. So guilt, obligation, shame, they're all part of the worthiness program.
Yeah.
So guilt says, I can't, do what I want to do. I can't choose myself because I need to prove that I'm worthy to someone else first. So it creates the dynamics of people pleasing and codependence and a whole bunch of other stuff.
Yeah.
Shame, shame, it goes back to tribal shame. So if you've been shamed by your tribe, chances are you've also been abandoned and rejected. So there's a connection between shame and death. And shame, nobody talks about shame. It's like people are too afraid to talk about shame. Yeah. It's really,
but it's deep. It's
mm-hmm.
a big, it's present in many, on many levels, on personal, national, the way countries come sometimes, need to, deal with the national shame,
mm-hmm.
in order to heal as a nation the past, but it's not often mentioned in that way. Like, this is what we're facing. This is shame.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I guess it's very painful, I suppose. Yeah. Mm-hmm. People are afraid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just to say a little bit about that, because people might be listening who are feeling shame, because most of us have hidden shame, that thing that we never talk about. And that's the epitome of non-self-love, epitome of self-judgment.
Mm-hmm.
And the remedy really is self-love.
Yeah.
So not punishing yourself more
for whatever it is you feel shame around.
Yeah, whatever it is, it's and we're human, we are not perfect. We,
make
do the best we can. So everybody racks up shame. Everybody does. I don't think there's a person on earth who hasn't had some kind of shame, and maybe it's secret, maybe it's public. It doesn't even matter.
Yeah.
And if you really look at, like, in a big picture and you trace that back, it all goes back to the same one problem, where we believe that we're unworthy unless proven. Yeah. And because we're trying to prove our worth, we disempower ourselves.
Yeah. Because immediately that's disempowering, because you are worthy. Full stop.
Yeah. Well, yes, absolutely. Yes. Yeah. And if I need other people to agree that I'm worthy, right, to prove I'm worthy, then I'm going to suppress myself. Like, I'm not going to act in ways that others might deem unworthy.
Yeah.
And in that suppression, I've disempowered myself.
Yeah.
And so what we witness now all across the globe is mass disempowerment. People suppressing themselves and giving away their power. And when that dynamic happens, it ultimately leads to shameful behavior that's out of integrity with who we are. And that stems from self-suppression.
Yeah.
And that's from believing that we're unworthy.
Yeah. And
the cure is having the courage to love ourselves despite what we have done or not done. Like that's the cure.
Yeah.
And giving that to each other as well, loving each other. It's the true act of forgiveness.
Yeah.
Self-forgiveness.
Yeah. Powerful. Yeah. And and obviously, always it comes back to, you can only really love other people fully and deeply if you love yourself first. Can you tell me a little bit about your no experiment? I thought it's so interesting like I was reading in the book as well, that you decided at one stage, okay, I'm just going to say no to everything. I'm just going to say no to everything and see how that makes me feel, how that changes my relationship with the world. I think it's such an empowering, thing to try.
So it was in my 20s, and I became aware of that I was run by guilt. Mm-hmm. So guilt and obligation, I can now call them my motors. I didn't have that language back then. Now I can see they were motors, pleasing other people, my mother, my friend, boyfriend, you name it, right? And so this was all going on, and I had this huge awakening, and I could clearly see the lie in that. And so I decided to claim my life, myself, my worth.
Mm-hmm.
And out of a great act of self-love, I said no to guilt. And if I was motivated by guilt or obligation whatsoever, that was my key, my close.
Okay, this means no.
Yeah, this means no. Yes, yeah. And I just said no. My mother and I, we had a dynamic going on, and wasn't working, and I just kept saying no. And my boyfriend that I had at the same time, the same thing. And I think they both got together and discussed how selfish I had become.
What are we gonna do? We gotta stop this no thing.
Yeah.
Nice.
So but I was at the point where that was fine. I didn't care. And the more I set these boundaries, and the boundaries are always with yourself. It looks like they're with other people, but it's really with yourself.
Yeah.
And the more I boundaries and the more I was able to say no, the more space I made for myself in my life.
Yeah.
And after a bit of time, I was full, and now I wanted to help and be of service and support, but it was coming from a completely different place, not because
not
I
obligation.
was trying to, not obligation, not fear of guilt.
Yeah.
It changed everything.
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah,
Yes.
I've been doing an experiment a little bit like that recently, just by not responding to everything. Like all my life, I've had this feeling that you always have to respond, in some way to everything. And just recently, I've just been playing an experiment of like, oh well, maybe I don't, because there's people that don't respond to me, and it's okay. Like I survive, So maybe I can just practice like, okay, if I don't actually feel like, if I don't feel anything to respond back to someone who's asked me for something, right, or maybe I just won't, and I'll see, and that's very empowering for me, just to go, it's okay. And I don't care if they hate me for that, or, it's fine. It's a little bit similar.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. The bottom line is, and this is like the hardest thing to perceive at first, and that is that we don't have to do anything.
Yeah.
There's nothing we have to do.
Mm-hmm.
And come like really settling into that and being at choice, being at choice, not because I have to or should, but being completely at choice.
Yeah.
Then when do what we decide to do, it's from a completely different space, and we're connected. We are acting as our true selves, and we are connected to source energy, and we have a tremendous amount more energy than forcing it because we should or we have to.
Yeah. And for me, it's also, that process has also been very much just like putting myself first, instead of pleasing people. Like, okay, somebody wants something from me, and I don't even want to respond. I'm like, okay, I'm not going to.
Yeah.
See what happens, and I'm okay. I'm okay with it. Yeah.
Yes.
So yes.
Yeah. So like our job is to take care of ourselves first.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, I'm a caretaker for this body and this life. Like my spirit is a caretaker. Your spirit is a caretaker
for your life. Human experience.
And if we put it, yeah, exactly. And if we put everybody else first, who's taking care of me? Who's taking care of you? We got to take care of ourselves first.
Yeah. And
then that excess of energy, and there's always an excess of energy, then we can support others. Just happens.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's, even to come to that realization that it's us that has to take care of us it's quite a journey, like it's nice to have the feeling that someone else will take care of us, but it's never going to really happen once you've grown up.
No,
yeah.
It's not supposed to. It's not supposed to, because then it's disempowering.
Yeah. I mean, that obviously once you're fully taking care of yourself, then other people come into your life and want to share and, treat you with love and respect. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But
then you co-create.
Yeah. So, other thing I want to ask you about is what I found really interesting too is self-judgments and not judging your past self. So that's a really
Mm-hmm.
powerful, in the process of self-love. One thing is loving yourself today, but you also need to love your
Yeah.
whole past self. And I found that really illuminating because it's like, if you're shaming and guilting on yourself for things in the past, you're not free.
Right. Exactly. The subconscious doesn't know the difference between past, present, and future,
Yeah.
and it believes everything you believe. So if you're wanting to experience self-love now, but you're still judging yourself from 5 or 10 or 20 years ago, you still have this judgment. Your subconscious mind is receiving that judgment of your past self as judgment of
As
present
now.
self.
Yeah. So it's equally painful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It becomes a barrier. And really, so it's like we're as wise as we are today because of all the mistakes our past selves made. Like, thank you, past self, right, for going through that, right?
Yeah.
And past self, instead of, judging her or judging him for ignorance or making a mistake that you wouldn't now, instead honor him or her because that allowed you to gain the wisdom you have now. And so to go back and instead of beating your past self up, going back and saying, oh, I know this is a hard time for you. And thank you so much for going through this. You learned so much.
Yeah.
And it was courageous. And you're going to be okay. And I love you. And thank you.
Yeah. So that's like a process that you would go through, if you're recognizing that you're judging on your past self, you like maybe do a kind of meditation process to go back there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. In fact, I recommend going back to every past life memory that still, kind of stings when we think about it or comes up from time to time.
Yeah.
Whether it was at 4 years old or 40 years old, going back to each of those experiences and to sit down with yourself at that age and to create a connection, eye contact. This all happens in the imagination. Again, the subconscious doesn't know the difference between real and imagined.
Yeah.
And to hear what that past self has to say that nobody else listened to, nobody else understood, like to really hear and listen to what he has to say, and then compassionately offer love and wisdom, and let him know, hey, you're going to be okay, and the belief that you might adopt from this, it's not true. You are lovable. You are unconditionally worthy, and you're perfect.
Wow.
And to go back to each situation and provide the wisdom particular for that.
Yeah.
And then it ripples forward.
Yeah.
Keeps rippling forward.
Yeah. So that might take like a few days or a few weeks, to do that, depending on the age that you are.
Yes. Yeah.
And
it took me years, actually. No, it took me. It was sporadic as things would come up.
Yeah.
I would do the process. You can intentionally, go through it, but for me, I just allowed them to come up and then, do that process then. So it took years.
Yeah.
It took years. It's worth it, though. It was worth it.
Yeah,
it was awesome.
Absolutely. Yeah. I had a little forgiveness workshop here on the weekend, and I was talking about that process, and really what I realized in that moment is it's like you're actually changing your past, because your past is not real. It's because all that's real is now, but by doing that process, you're actually changing it.
You are.
You're changing the way you felt then. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's quite amazing.
It is.
It's like you can sort of live a different life in the past, thanks.
It's true. We live in a quantum world.
Yeah.
And we're in and out of realities all the time. We just don't know it. It's seamless. And so why not reprogram your subconscious mind to have a different past so that you're along your best possible future?
Yeah. Why not?
Yeah, why not? Okay, why not?
Yeah. Nice. Yes. What else do I have? So yeah, what about living your purpose and living your life purpose? Do you think, do you believe in that? And do you think that's just going to naturally happen the more you're loving yourself and the more you're living from your higher self?
Yes, yes, yes. It's part of it. When we're living as the ego, it's not really possible to live our purpose because the purpose comes from true self and being connected to source energy. It just happens. If you follow your love, what you love to do, if you follow the energy, what you have energy for doing, like that's how we find our path and our purpose.
And that's what we're here for, ultimately.
That's what we're here for. Yeah, that's what we're here for. Exactly. Exactly. So a lot of times, people, they're very focused, especially now. I don't think it's ever been so common for people to have this desire to fulfill a purpose. I can't imagine, in the 1800s or before that, people, I have a purpose. Maybe some people did, but overall, I think it was more about survival. And now we're at this era. So many people, when they talk about it, not like, I got this something I'm here to do. That's not what and taking the shift, and a lot of people, so I coach people for the last 20 years around the world, and so a lot of people come to me trying, wanting to find their purpose.
Okay.
And so if you kind of like hit it head on, sometimes you can, but often it's really the path is helping someone get in touch with who they really are and starting to let go of all the things that are not an expression of their higher self.
Okay, that they're doing in their current life, kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And chiseling away, shall we say, like Michelangelo, you would chisel until the real beauty came through in the statue. So it's like that with life, So letting go of things that aren't really supporting that person or authentic for that person, and ultimately that light, that energy begins to come through, and you follow what you love to do, and you follow the energy for what you have energy. If you don't have energy to do something, that means you're not supposed to go there. That's in your guidance.
Yeah.
If you follow the energy, if you follow your love for something, it's inevitable that you will end up living your purpose and following your path. There's no other way.
Yeah.
You were designed.
Yeah. That's really interesting because for me, I have a little quandary sometimes because I have many interests, and I'm like, I feel I should just do this one thing, but then I'm like, oh, but I also love that and that, and that's a good way to approach it. Like, maybe I can keep doing my many interests as long as it's all from love, and it's all what I want to do. It's not like I have to choose one. It's just like I only do it if it's feeling, good, and I'm called and I love it. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. That's inner guidance.
Yeah.
It's really that, right, if we allow it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And don't be surprised that following all these different things, at some point, they don't come together.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's what I'm hoping always. Yeah.
I look at life and I can see, I've said the same thing many times. There's so many things I love to do, and can see how they all have come together as one thing.
Yeah. I mean, I like to look at it from that perspective too, because I do a lot of things, but like it's kind of like my core message through all the things is the same. Like, like I play music, I write, I interview people, I do my website, but it's like my message is like it's kind of the same in all these things. Like the energy is the same. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. How wonderful. You have all those expressions.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. It's nice. Yeah. Channels. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Channels to share, I guess, is what they are. Yeah. Yes. Beautiful.
Wow. You're beautiful. Wow.
Oh, you are very beautiful too. Thanks. Well, it's been an amazing discussion with you. I think that's most of my questions. Yeah. So just a little bit, tell me a bit about your work and how people can contact you and, what it is you're doing at the moment.
Yeah. So my website is nanice.com. So
Yeah.
Nanice.com. And I have a ton of just about everything on my website. So from self-improvement to spiritual realization, you name it. I have a free 7-part spiritual awakening teleseries, which is really awesome. I really recommend that. I have hundreds of articles on all different subjects, everything from worthiness to empowerment, from guilt to depression to waking up, from A to Z. And I have about 168 archived radio shows.
I love them. I listened to quite a few of those.
Yeah.
Chai with Nanice.
Yeah. Yes, Chai with Nanice. Yeah,
so
exactly.
Good.
Yeah, so that's all on my website, and that's all available. My books are also available on the website, and if anybody would like to contact me, they could just click on the little Ask Nanice link, and
nice.
So
you do you do coaching. Yeah. You do one-to-one sessions.
Yes. Yeah. All over the world by Skype.
Yeah.
It's awesome. Yeah. And there's information on my website regarding that as well. So
yeah, beautiful. Yeah. And you're doing do you do speaking? I saw you're doing speaking somewhere.
Yes. Yeah. Nice. Yeah. Right now I'm doing local groups and some other things.
Yeah.
On the horizon. So yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. Thank you.
Great. So that's how you can find you. That's how you can find Nanice. And I really encourage everyone listening to go to her website. It's amazing. Yeah. And the Chai with Nanice is amazing. And the pledge. Download the pledge. Take the pledge. It's amazing.
Yes. Yeah. And I don't know if you know this, Michelle, but because in probably like the last year, you can go on and you can print out like a little certificate for the pledge too.
I did that. Yeah.
You did? Okay. Awesome. Yeah. Awesome. Cool.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah. No, I go through that often. Especially if I'm having a bad day, I read that and I'm like, okay, yeah, okay, I'm good.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, thanks so much for being here with me today.
My honor.
Yeah, it's been really great.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
You're a hostess. I love it.
Oh, it's been great.
And really fun. So thank you.
Yeah. So is there anything else? There's nothing else you would like to say about self-love? Or
It is the most important aspect of life. Everything else comes from self-love.
Yeah.
Your life is always a reflection of the amount of love that you have for yourself. So anytime you want to manifest something or create or attract, whether it's a house or a partner or a career or abundance,
money.
Whatever.
Yeah.
It's always relative to the amount of self-love that we're giving to ourselves. So if we withhold self-love, we're also withholding those things that we desire. Yeah. So if there's something that you want in life, keep giving more and more love and honoring, respect, acknowledgement, understanding to yourself, and those other pieces will begin to reflect all the good energy that you're allowing to come into your life.
Yeah. Because essentially love is everything. It's all we are. It's like, it's all there is.
That's all there is.
So
that's all there is. Yeah.
We need to be flowing in that. And then, things will work.
Yes. Yeah. Only love is real.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like if you're not in that flow, you're kind of somehow in unreality somehow.
Right. That's a beautiful way to say it.
Yeah. It's good to stay in the real.
Yeah. Yes. Exactly. Yeah.
Stay aligned to source and our higher self and stay in the real.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
And I love you.
I love you too. Okay.
Yeah.
Namaste.
Thank you.